better way to find the perfect hotel from Priceline.
On us now on kids and mind-altering drugs, not street drugs, psychiatric medications prescribed by doctors and being given in doses and combinations that are in some cases mind-blowing to some of society's most vulnerable kids. Antipsychotics, antidepressants, powerful tranquilizers, and sedatives, all the familiar brands, Prozac, Ritalin, Zoloft, Ambien, with all the familiar side effects, being given to kids, sometimes even to infants. Now, it's all been documented in a new report from the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, which looked at foster kids and other children on Medicaid in 5 states. What it found is that foster kids were anywhere from 2 to 4 times more likely to be prescribed psychotropic drugs. It found more than 20,000 kids in both groups taking more than the maximum recommended dosages, so higher dosages than recommended. 1,700 kids in both groups were taking 5 or more different drugs at the same time, 5 mind-altering drugs or more at once. According to the report, more than 4,000 infants were on psychotropic drugs. Kids a year old or younger being given drugs that doctors say no child should actually take. The report points out that many of the foster kids do in fact have greater mental health needs because of what they've been through in life. Yet the report warns they're also potentially at higher risk for health problems and, quote, according to GAO's experts, no evidence supports the concomitant use of 5 or more psychotropic drugs in adults or children. Means taking them at the same time. Yet GAO investigators found thousands of kids in or out of foster care who were on such combinations. And as ABC News found out when it reported on the problem, many of these drugs are nightmarishly hard to quit.
Rob, you need to get down. Come here, Rob.
Withdrawal. Those were kids going through withdrawal. The question is, are we over-medicating kids, in particular the most vulnerable of kids, and if so, why? Digging deeper now at 360 MD, Sanjay Gupta and Michael Perino, CEO of the National Court-Appointed Special Advocate Association. Sanjay, the number of kids being medicated seems very high. In some cases, kids were on five or more drugs at one time and at levels exceeding FDA regulations. What do you make of it?
Well, yeah, first of all, there's not a lot of data or guidelines in using some of these medications in children that young. So it's striking just from that regard alone. I mean, flying a little bit blind. And then as you read, Anderson, a lot of people read that sometimes 5 or even more of these medications being used in the same child. It was pretty striking. And a lot of my colleagues and I were talking about this today. The concern of some of these foster children, have been neglected, have been abused, may need some sort of therapy, but using this many medications, I think was concerning for everybody. Also, the longer-term effects on the brain, something I'm very interested in, we just don't know because a lot of these medications, Anderson, are tested in adults first. A lot of the data in terms of safety comes out of adult data, so it's very hard to apply some of that to children. We do know that there can be some long-term effects on the brain. We do know some of these medications can cause weight gain, which is significant weight gain. We do know that some of these medications can double, even triple the risk of a child developing diabetes down the road. So, I think there's lots of reasons to be concerned. One thing I'll just tell you really quick, and I'm curious what Michael says about this. We talked to other psychiatrists who say, look, even in the general population, we're seeing this study now, but even in the general population, non-Medicaid children who are not in foster care, the numbers, if you really sat down and analyzed them, would also likely be strikingly high.
Michael, you say this is actually one of the biggest concerns that you're hearing from people working with foster kids. Are kids in the system being given drugs that they don't need? Because that's what it certainly seems like in this GAO report.
It really feels like that to us. I mean, these numbers that you read are awful, but when you hear the stories, the suffering that kids are going through when they have 5, but there are even more medications some kids have. There are kids with 12. And they describe being like zombies, and the suffering they go to is just terrible. So we feel very strongly that this is a serious issue and it needs to be changed.
I can understand, Michael, kids who are in the foster care system maybe, obviously they're dealing with issues that come from difficult backgrounds, and therefore it would be understandable they might have a higher incidence of needing medication. But the combinations, the high numbers of combinations beyond what's actually effective and that may even be counteractive, and also the age of some of these kids. I mean, giving children under the age of 1 year old some of these medications, this is, as Sanjay was saying, uncharted territory.
Yeah, I can't imagine giving infants these drugs, but on the other hand, we've also heard of toddlers who've been placed in hospitals for behavior problems, and then they're put on medications. And I'm not a physician, but I can't believe that we can't do better. We can't provide better care, better thoughtful diagnosis when we do need to use these drugs. And this is, to me, this is one of the big issues. Is this is a system that is chronically short of time for kids. And if you're going to be using psychotropic medications with them, you have got to do it carefully.